The 10 biggest lies of Brexit.
I'll back you all the way. That's the price that I'm paid for selling my country down that road. Oh, 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 oh. Ram, 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 like a ding, 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 ding. Don't shoot, what you buddy think, come on. Do what, should be do up, ram, 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 like a ding, ding, ding. Don't shoot, what you buddy think, come on.
If you are a regular watcher of this channel, you will know that I voted for Brexit in 2016.
You idiot! You're honestly an idiot. I don't know what's wrong with you.
And I have since then regretted doing so. It was a campaign built on lies perpetuated by certain individuals such as Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson. God rest his soul. If I could go back, I would. But we can't. We've got to learn from these lessons. We've got to learn from these lies. And we've got to politically alleviate ourselves and make ourselves better. Before we go into the video, please do subscribe to the channel, like the video and comment and blah blah blah. It helps me out massively and it doesn't cost anything for you to do. Let's crack on. So the 10 biggest lies. We're going to go through the 10 biggest lies and we're going to debunk them and just see how badly the Leave campaign, Boris Johnson, Nigel Farage, Dominic Cummings, how badly they lied to us. Number 1. We send the EU £350 million a week. Let's fund our NHS instead.
Let's talk about the 350 million, which is so beloved of everybody who interrogates me.
So when it came to Vote Leave's killer slogan of the 2016 referendum campaign, Dominic Cummings wrote, "Would we have won without the £350 million NHS? No." All of our research and the close results strongly suggests no. It also happens to be untrue. The UK did not send the EU £350 million a week. First, the figure did not include the rebate negotiated by Margaret Thatcher in 1984. And second, even if it had, it didn't take into account the money that flowed back from the EU, such as under the Common Agricultural Policy and regional investments for deprived areas. Number 2, Turkey. Turkey, the population 76 million, is joining the EU. Vote Leave, take back control.
The referendum, you and your chum Dominic Cummings in the Vote Leave campaign suggested 80 million Turks would come to this country if we stayed in the EU, which was absurd then and is absurd now.
The incendiary claim insinuated that Turkey was about to join the EU. Turkey have still not joined the EU, and they are still no closer to joining the EU than they were before the Leave campaign and during the Leave campaign. Another lie. Absolutely nobody is talking about threatening our place in the single market. Need I bother? David Hannan, then Conservative MEP, now peer, he promised single market access for UK businesses after leaving the EU, only to then insist on the hardest imaginable Brexit. Theresa May confirmed in 2017 that Brexit meant leaving the single market, saying remaining in it would mean being bound by EU laws. Another lie. We can take back control over UK waters, set our own fishing policies and support our fishermen. Boris Johnson, June 2016. Technically, it can be argued that the UK now has control over its own waters, but it doesn't alter the fact that the fish caught by UK boats is mainly exported to the EU, and the fish that we eat is imported. According to research by the House of Commons Library, 60 to 80% of UK domestic landings are exported. These include fish popular on the continent like herring, mackerel and shellfish. Meanwhile, cod, haddock, tuna, salmon and prawns accounted for around 70% of all fish consumption in the UK and represent a significant proportion of our fish imports. So, it didn't really matter anyway. Penny Mordaunt in the Sunday Express, May the 29th, 2016, said this: Britain will be forced to join an EU army unless we leave. The minister in charge of Britain's military has become the first member of the government to confirm that if the UK remains under Brussels control, it will be forced to join an EU army. There was no prospect of Britain joining an EU army because there wasn't one, and nothing in the article supported the notion of a plan being tabled the day after the referendum. The EU could not have been forced to participate in EU military policies even if we had stayed in. The European Commission cannot propose laws about security or defence, and on issues like this, member countries in effect have a veto. The UK will continue to give farmers and the environment as much support or perhaps even more as now. This was on March 23rd, 2016 by George Eustace. The EU's much deprived common agricultural policy, designed to support the farmers who keep Europe fed, doles out two kinds of subsidy payments. Most of its money goes on supplementing farmers' income so they can improve production, and a much smaller proportion on funding positive environmental action. Post-Brexit, the UK government replaced this with a scheme under which most of the money is spent rewarding environmental improvements, improving soil quality, creating new hedgerows, and planting more trees are all laudable, but beyond the scope of some farmers. Subsidies for many farms have been slashed as a result. Chris Short, Associate Professor in Environmental Governance at Gloucester University's Countryside and Community Research Institute, told TNE earlier this year that the subsidy schemes were so complex and the paperwork so demanding that many farmers would not apply. The consequence of that is that in fact the Treasury will see that farmers are not interested, and that the $2.4 billion that has been allocated up to 2024 will be reallocated somewhere else. International Trade Secretary Liam Fox promised this. He promised that, believe me, we'll have up to 40 trade agreements ready for 1 second after midnight. Liam Fox did not have 40 free trade agreements ready for 1 second after midnight in March 2019, and nor did the UK leave the EU at that point. 70 post-Brexit trade deals have been signed, but the overwhelming majority of them are simply roll-over agreements which we already had in place. And essentially, they just changed the acronym from the EU to the UK. Number 8, the EU Shared Prosperity Fund will bind together the whole of the UK, tackling inequality and deprivation in each of our 4 nations. This was in the Conservative Party Manifesto 2019, if you weren't aware, which Boris Johnson never reneged on. 2 flagship EU programmes were a lifeline for often left behind communities in the years before Brexit, the European Regional Development Fund and the European Social Fund. This put €10.8 billion into roads, factories, social inclusion projects, and in places such as Wales, North East England, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. The Conservative promised a replacement scheme would at least match the European programmes, but this hasn't happened. The UK received the equivalent of $1.35 billion a year under the old system, but December's announcement of funds accounted for just under £870 million a year on average. This is compounded further by the fact that there had always been other UK regeneration and social funds available alongside EU programmes with principles such as additionality, meaning that the EU funding was designed to leverage match funding from other public and private sources. Basically, we just haven't replaced it, and what we have replaced it with is far less than what we were getting from the EU in the first place. Cheaper food after the EU exit. Consumer boosts as experts now say that prices will come down. This was in the Daily Express, October 18th, 2016. They basically promised us that the food prices will go down. They did the opposite, and if anything, they've not stopped going up. I pay almost £2 for a pack of 8 Kit Kats. Perhaps my favourite, and perhaps the most famous lie of all. Theresa May said, when running for the leadership of the Conservative Party in July 2016 after David Cameron fucked off, Brexit means Brexit and we're going to make a success of it.
Brexit means Brexit. The campaign was fought, the vote was held, turnout was high, and the public gave their verdict.
You don't have to be the most intelligent person to know that Brexit's been fucking awful. It's not been very good. It's barely been a success. Migration's got worse. Food prices have got worse. Funding for local councils have got worse. More local councils have gone bankrupt. The government's more corrupt than ever. All we've done is made sure that there is no more insights, that there is no more EU insight. We should have had a campaign telling us all about the benefits of the EU rather than the hemorrhaging campaign that we had from the Leave side, which just won everyone's minds. In my opinion, we should never have left the EU. We were better off in it. We did need reforms. There were sure reforms to be had. Boris Johnson, the architect of Brexit, I did it, but didn't. Look at all the trouble that we had with the Northern Ireland Protocol. Another lie, which I didn't manage to include in the list. But let me know, do you think Brexit was a lie? Do you think it was all a ploy by the Westminster elite? Do you have anger towards key figures such as Nigel Farage, Boris Johnson, Dominic Cummings for their handling of the Leave campaign and for the way they basically undercut the entire country? Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching the video. See you next time.
When you wake up, well, you know I'm gonna be the man who's older like you. And when we go out, well, you know I'm gonna be the man who acts as Putin's fool. When you're suffering, well, you know I'll never be the man who's suffering with you.
Did you like the video? Then hit the subscribe button or watch some more videos. It helps me out with the YouTube algorithm and helps the channel grow. Thank you very much.